Welcome in here on this edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford studio on this Thursday morning. We'll call Jeffrey Wright here in a few minutes. We'll talk some national stuff with him as we do most every Thursday, and we'll let him go to his first radio show of the day. And then we'll talk some baseball as Ole Miss got good news on Hunter Elliott yesterday. That was announced. He has a strained UCL. They do expect him back at some point this season. I'll go over particulars of that and kind of the kerfuffle and chaos of a rain-shortened game and a delay and tarp gate and the entire thing last night at Swayze Field as Ole Miss was losing 5-4 to Louisiana Tech in the seventh inning, but they win 4-3 because the seventh inning never happened. So I'll go over all that as well when we're done with Jeffrey here in a bit. But the podcast brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford. Ole Miss returns to Swayze Field in a couple weeks. Purdue is the opponent next weekend for that, and you can win tickets to the final game of the series, 4 box seats, courtesy of the Oxford Exxon. You do that by getting on social media, and you at them, at Oxford Exxon, use the hashtag RebelReady, and you can be entered to win. Say what you want. Say something clever. You have a chance to win those tickets the rest of the season for every series finale with the Oxford Exxon. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are Clark Ford, excuse me, is in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest up to you. You can shop the quote around. You can do what I've done, but I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today, 662-257-1900. Jeffrey Wright, other guests join on the MyPerfectFranchise.net hotline. If you're a displaced corporate executive or you're wanting to put your career in your own hands, if you're an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify, Andy Ludicky can help. He owns multiple franchises and businesses. He uses his expertise to help others find their American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. So call Andy, put your life and your career in your own hands. It's 100% free. You got nothing to lose. Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. Or you can contact Andy anytime at andy@myperfectfranchise.net or 404-973-9901.
Is Jeffrey ready? Got something to kill?
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to.
Okay. We'll call Jeffrey Wright on the My Perfect Franchise hotline. Talk to him a little bit as we do again every Thursday.
Hello.
Hello. So I've called the wrong number. I apologize.
No problem. Bye-bye.
See, she sounded happy to talk, though. I think we could have had a conversation there.
You have those days where they start and you know it's kind of not going to be your day. It's going to be a day you just sort of have to endure it and get through it. I'm having one of those.
I think this is one of those today.
For sure. Nope. I'll just talk for a minute. I'll figure it out.
Do you want the number in print form where you can type it in?
I'm trying to get to that screen where I can.
Oh, okay.
I've got his number. Okay.
I know, but sometimes you don't know the exact number. I text it to you in digit form if you need it that way. That's all. It's all good. It's rainy morning. Everybody ignored the storms or slept through them last night. The thunder was worse around my house around 4 a.m. this morning. It woke me up sometime around between 3:45 and 4.
I couldn't sleep through that lightning and thunder to save my life. That was scary.
Even the lightning?
Yeah, the lightning. I mean, I thought something popped inside the house. There was like this loud pop. We went looking for it at 4:30 in the morning, like what was broken. Jeffrey?
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Man, I don't know if there's like something going on, but like Memphis today is like an absolute standstill. Like traffic, everything. I don't know if like the overnight rain made everyone sleep in or what. I don't know. This is a disaster for us. This feels like I'm back in college.
What do you think it is?
I mean, honestly, my only working theory is, overnight rain. So there's flooding possibilities, so wrecks and whatnot. But I mean, it didn't matter if you took, it didn't matter if you took the streets. It didn't matter if you took the freeway. Like, it is just a disaster.
Did you alter your route?
So I was trying to, as a lifelong Memphian, I know the big bad streets, and I was trying to beat the system, and I took a back way, and I'm stopped at this, like, I'm going through traffic, but like everything's stopped, and then there's people on the right that are trying to cut across, and you just hear all these horns honking, and then finally this hero in a 4Runner gets out of his front door, turns behind him, and just yells, "Shut the F up," to everyone behind him. And I just felt like, okay, I think that's just how the day's going.
Neal kind of said the same. He said he's having a weird morning. You're having a weird morning. It's moving through right now.
Yeah, there was lightning at 4:30 that made this giant pop sound. Laura thought so too, though. Some device broke. And so we went like looking for it. And then you start getting paranoid, and I came up and made sure Carson was okay.
Well, like, what kind of pop? Is it possible lightning just hit a tree?
It sounded like something exploded in like the living room, but nothing did. I went in fully anticipating like a TV to be busted or the oven or something like that, right? And everything appeared to be fine. And I came upstairs like thinking maybe it was something up here, and it was nothing up here. And I checked in on Carson, and then I got back in the bed, and I couldn't sleep, of course, because now my brain's going on, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, at that point you're up.
And then I fell asleep a little, and then Laura's leaving for Arkansas today, and so she got up early so she could finish packing. I was like, this day is just shot.
So
yeah,
Jeffrey, I'll give you a little dress rehearsal for your show today.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. What in the world? What do you make of this newest Ja Morant thing? Just Ja in general is a team leader for Memphis right now. The Washington Post reporting that he was accused of repeatedly punching a teenage boy in the head and threatening him with a gun last summer. That comes a few days after some other incidents. It feels like it's all sort of piling up right now, but how do you sort of unpack it?
Okay, so it's important to note the teenager basketball story that had been reported, and to me,
yeah, real quick, 2 seconds for people who haven't followed this. That incident is a 17-year-old told police last August, who turned 23 last August, that Morant had punched him 12 or 13 times during a pickup game at the point guard's house.
Correct. And Ja subsequently filed his own police report, and he did admit to hitting him, but it was out of self-defense. Also, the young man in question, it is important to note, his mother has filed, I believe, the upwards of 20 lawsuits, I believe all of which up until this point have been dismissed. And Ja's attorneys are claiming that initially, after that incident, she asked for $20 million from Ja. So you do have to take it with a grain of salt. All of these incidents, kind of taken individually, they're all kind of bad looks, but at the same time, you kind of roll your eyes and you're like, all right, whatever. The problem is when you take all of these stories, the basketball court story in his house, the mall incident, and then the fracas or whatever happened in the loading dock of FedEx Forum with his crew against the Indiana Pacers. Well, now you're starting to establish a pattern, and the pattern is, while most of the time Ja's not kind of at the spearhead, he's not exactly surrounded by he's surrounded by hotheads, I guess is how I would say it. And it's now starting to be a pattern. You have 3 different incidents. It's also important to note with the mall incident, it's 4 days after the basketball court incident, and the NBA suspended one of Ja's like main entourage guys, and there hasn't really been an incident since. So in fairness to the Grizzlies and those that are in, have a vested interest in Ja, it's entirely possible that this has been addressed and it's moving forward, yet they're digging up other things that needed to be addressed. And now you don't get the gift of, well, it's been handled because everyone's bringing up old stuff. I think the question that Ja's going to have to determine is, what does he want his image to be? And it seems to me right now that he wants his image to kind of be tough guy. And if I'm advising him, I'm saying, listen, if that's what you want your image to be, that's fine. Just understand this. Go pull up the top 50 off-field endorsement guys and gals. Maybe they have politics that you don't like, but for the most part, they're pretty corporate and buttoned up guys. And if you want to be $1 billion athlete, the tough guy route is not the way to go. But if that's not what you care about, then, if you're sitting there going, hey, I'm going to make, probably $500 million in my career from salary, that's entirely your choice. I also think, though, when you consider Ja to a lot of these other athletes, Ja was massively overlooked as a recruit. He goes to Murray State. He hasn't been part of, the machine, if you will. Even with LeBron, LeBron's on the front page of Sports Illustrated in high school, doesn't go to college. He's been a part of, the corporate Nike zeitgeist machine, all of that, for much of his career. When you look at a lot of these soccer guys, same thing. They've been in these academies for so long. So now you have this guy that's become essentially this megastar overnight, and there's, he's got his family and whatnot, but there's not really a brand business manager. And I think you're starting to see you've got a lot of people that are completely dependent on Ja, and there's no one from the outside that's kind of navigating and maneuvering and positioning for him.
He reminds me so much of Russell Westbrook. He can't stop. He can't let the chip come off his shoulder. It's like, I got disrespected. I got overlooked. Ended up at Murray State. People didn't think I could play. They thought I was too small. They thought whatever. And then
I can't shoot.
Yeah, and when the success comes, they can't. Westbrook almost used to admit this. It's like, well, if I let this chip come off my shoulder, because now people respect me. I got voted MVP, right? I'm a multi-time All-Star. I got multiple NBA deals. I've made incredible money. People off the court are throwing money at me to wear goofy clothes. Everything I could possibly want's there, but if I let this chip go of disrespect, I won't be the same player. And Morant's, in my opinion, infinitely better than Westbrook was at his peak. Not today, Russell, but Russell when he was.
He's certainly more skilled.
Yeah, but he has that same thing, and he just can't let it go. And I think I wish someone, like you said, could get to him and say, hey, drop it. It's okay. You can be a beast on the floor and then let it go the moment you walk off the floor.
Yeah, and I think that's going to occur because in the end, if you use the Russell Westbrook comparison, Russell wasn't getting a Nike signature shoe, and Russell's in the peak of the LeBron era. Well, now we have kind of this era where we might be switching of the guard, and Ja is the only young guy kind of in his class that's gotten his signature shoe that they're kind of, that they're investing a lot in. And to me, I don't want to say like I'm putting it all on Nike, but like I do think Nike's going to have to step in and do what Nike does best. I mean, I think they're arguably the greatest marketing company we've ever seen, and they're going to have to take over the imaging and the branding and kind of reel it in. Like, to me, the biggest thing is there's no one from the outside that's kind of offering guidance. And, we've seen, it's a tale of old time when you lead, young people to buckets of money and everyone around them is, essentially beholden to them. Well, it turns out those usually aren't the best decision makers, and, we see problems ensue. But to me, do I think this is like Ja's some type of thug or whatnot? No, I do think though we've seen in the NBA when guys don't come quote unquote from the streets, they seem to like want to try to prove themselves, and I think Ja's maybe struggled with that at times, but I don't know. I guess kind of more than anything, I think it also what we're seeing is it kind of shows the star power of Ja Morant. I mean, the Washington Post was sending out the entire PR campaign yesterday. Like they were doing they were just plugging this, and it's because, hey, if you see Ja Morant in a story, it catches fire.
Yeah, and he's on a team that's a competitive team. I mean, Memphis is right there with Denver and Phoenix and, frankly, Sacramento, who I've watched a little bit lately. I mean, those are the 4 teams in the West that have a chance to win this unless you buy into the Warriors when Curry comes back. And Curry's supposed to come back in the next few days. Maybe he'll be effective. Maybe they'll be the Warriors of old. But this is Memphis's first real opportunity. I mean, not discount. You know what I mean? It's their first real opportunity to compete for a title this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose in the end, maybe last year was a better opportunity than they realized in real time. I mean, in the end, you lost in 6 to the Warriors, who go on to lose to Boston in 6, and the Grizzlies led for like 70% of that series. Like they were it was kind of an inverse of the Timberwolves series where they only led for like 30% of it, but they won in 6, and so like they kind of flip-flop. But, I mean, I think this is also kind of, I think the super team era really got us away from, in the NBA, thinking about how oftentimes the NBA was the story of teams having to be built and then overcome, and then kind of, there was a linear story, whereas the super team era just kind of threw everything. It's like, all right, just get the best players, go out and win, and there's no like really build.
Yep.
And I think what we're seeing with Ja is, not only is his team learning how to win at the highest level, like he's learning how to be a superstar in real time, and we're kind of watching it unfold.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We were talking yesterday, Neal and I had our opinions. Is the ACC intact as it is in 2025?
Okay, so I guess this is the biggest question that I have. If a lawyer hasn't been able to figure it out yet, and I don't know, Neal, how long do you believe the lawyers have been trying to beat the grant of rights? Because I believe it's been at least 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's been a while, but here's where I think things have changed.
Okay.
For the Florida State AD to come out and publicly say what he said, the way that he said it, and then for some of the articles that have been written from sort of FSU-friendly media.
Sure.
This has been – they've got some traction somewhere. And I think their traction is, hey, if enough of us all agree this isn't going to work, and we all start talking at the same time, and we all get out in front of this and say, here's where we're looking to go, and they're not all going to be together, but some could go to the SEC, some could go to the Big 12, some could go to the Big 10, a couple could go back to the Big East, and they could break it up where the grant of rights completely expired, or they could get close enough where they could work out a negotiated settlement that makes everybody happy. I just don't think that was a spur of the moment comment that the AD made. I thought that was very calculated. And that was the first time that I've ever heard anyone from one of those schools come out and just go, this doesn't work and we've got to get out.
So I agree with you that it's very calculated. I guess if I were playing devil's advocate, isn't it entirely possible that those comments are more reflective of, okay, he's unhappy, their lawyers haven't been able to beat this, so now you turn this into, a public sympathy campaign? I mean, to me, I guess the biggest question is, when you look at how that thing is, how the grant of rights is written, not only do they have to pay the exit fee, they can't sell their grant of rights to anyone until the contract runs out. So to me, if we're going down your plan, the only way that this is going to end up dissolving in the next, what is it, 2034?
2036.
36. So the only way that this ends up dissolving is there's going to have to be, and I can't remember, I remember looking this up last summer, but I think it's like, of their 14 members, I think 9 have to vote to dissolve the conference. And so if they vote to dissolve the conference, well, you can't enforce a grant of rights with a conference that doesn't exist. That's at least the legal theory. I'm
right,
far
that's
from a
correct.
legal scholar.
No, that's correct.
So the question is going to be, are you going to be able to convince, there are some teams that would obviously get scooped up. Are there going to be 9 to vote yes? Because there are some people that are, even though the ACC is getting left behind at the highest level, and, the Clemsons and the Florida States, and I suppose North Carolina and Virginia, even though they don't want to admit it out loud, they know it's true. There's going to be the point in which, is Pitt going to vote on this? I mean, are you going to be able to get are you able to get 9 people? Like, it becomes House of Cards at that point. Like, are you going to have the votes? I think the Pac-12 dissolves first.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12's done. I think that's over.
Yeah.
As soon as those teams jump Big 12.
Or
because otherwise they're just going to grab San Diego State and SMU and have a streaming platform that sucks and just kind of tread water.
It's pretty obvious at this point.
I think it's done. I think it's done. Not if the big. I think it's done if they don't get a deal, because I think isn't it March 31st? What's the ultimatum for Clay Apfall?
That's for the streaming platform or their rights or whatever the package is.
To get a TV deal done or whatever,
right.
to get a rights deal done. I think they've given him to the end of the month. And when you hear the comment, if you were close to a deal that a lot of people liked, you're not having these ADs come out and be so vocal, because when you get to the finish line of the deal, everyone shuts up. I mean, Neal can tell you, it's like the ultimate coaching search. You can get when the pieces are moving, you can get the information, but once they start closing in on the deal, everyone goes radio silent. And typically that's how it works in the TV deal too. And the fact that, you've got less than a month and everyone is still just essentially firing from the hip, that tells me that they are nowhere near close to a deal.
Yeah, I don't, and I just don't know that you can. We see this with these RSNs, right? With Major League Baseball. I don't know that these. I don't know what the future of television rights are. I don't know what the future of sports on television is. I don't know what the future of streaming is. Whether you can make more money from streaming, whether there's ever an opportunity to turn that into something super profitable, but. Again, I just go back to the same logical conclusion that I've had for a while now, and that is, you knew this day was coming when the Big Ten contract would kick in with Fox, and where the SEC contract would kick in with the Mouse, and people look at all the money, and if you're at one of these ACC schools, you look at it and you just see the difference, and you calculate that times 10, 11 years, and you say that's not acceptable. And once the word unacceptable gets passed around, I mean, it's kind of like the Pete Boone moment in Nashville in 2000, 11 or whenever that was, when he said this is unacceptable. There's no turning back from that, right? It's unacceptable. So at some point, someone's going to go to lawyers and go, here's whatever you got to do. Whatever we have to do, we got to get out. And I just think it's going to fold. I don't think there's any chance the ACC hangs as is for the rest of this grant of rights. I don't think there's any way. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, the question, though, for me is how do the mechanics – so if Chase is saying in 2 years, do I think the ACC exists? I can foresee a scenario where it does. Do I think the ACC is going to be – do I think the ACC makes it to the length of the grant of rights? Well, no, I obviously don't believe that. But I can still see a scenario where, hey, you can't get everybody on board because, you know, if you want to use the business analogy, I would say it's like this. There are plenty of people that are happy working for themselves, knowing that it's entirely possible they could go somewhere else and make more money, but they have to work for someone, they've got a boss, but they're comfortable, they're happy. There are some people in the ACC that like having their games that their people want to go to, and they don't want to give up their rivalries, and you know, they like thinking they're not SEC people, they're not Big Ten people, they're ACC people. And yeah, we're giving up a little bit of money, but you know, we kind of, we're happy where we are. Now, the problem is you have other people in that conference that are like, screw that, I want to get as much money as we can. Like that, you know, that's what we're in this business for. And just because you want to sit there and play ring around the rosy and you're happy, that doesn't mean that we are. So the question then becomes for me is like, are you going to be able to align enough people to agree to dissolve the conference? Because to me, that seems to be the simplest way forward. Because I really believe if there were wiggle room in that contract, that it would already have been found. And I think that there have been lots of people that have been paid lots of money and they can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's obviously that's the case. I don't know.
I mean, I do think there's going to be a point, though, where enough of them vote, and then the rest are going to see the writing on the wall, and then maybe, I guess, you can come to the structured settlement of, all right, we're dissolving the conference, but you're still going to pay us. Like, I'm sure there are legal ways to figure this out.
Yeah, we're like Texas and Oklahoma are paying the penalty because they looked at it and said, it's time to get out. We're going to make the money up quickly. I think that they're not there yet. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, but they're going to get there fast. Where they're just going to look across the landscape and say, how do we compete in this market? And I think the answer will be someone will reluctantly go, well, we can't. So we got to figure out a way to max cash in our value. I think that's what's coming. But maybe I've got the timetable sped way too much. But what we have seen in realignment is typically there's this mad rush, then it stabilizes, it's quiet, and then there's a mad rush again. Like things typically have been happening kind of out of nowhere, and then they tend to happen very quickly. So there's two ways to look at that. One would be, well, did things really get done that quickly, or were things just done quietly? And it's entirely possible right now that things are getting done quietly.
Moving around a little bit, the Giants, are they going to franchise tag Daniel Jones?
I think they would prefer to get a deal done.
Yeah,
the question is,
a deal done.
Really? You're going to go ahead and get that done? Not want to see.
I mean, everyone laughs at the Daniel Jones wants $40 million a year. Like, are we really this stupid that we're like, guys, it's a negotiation. Like, of course he's going to say he wants $40 million. The question is, what will he take? And, you know, these quarterback numbers are only going to keep going up. I mean, you know, we're going to start to see kind of a league average quarterback, provided he's not on a rookie deal. He's going to be making around 30 to 35 million. And there's a reason why, like when you saw Derek Carr seeking 35 million, well, when you kind of look at the average of the market, it's going to be for a starting quarterback. It's $35 million, and so I think they want to get a deal done. I think they prefer to. I think they would prefer to see kind of a version of the Kirk Cousins type deal where, maybe you give Daniel Jones, $100 million guaranteed or something along those lines, and it's like a 3-year deal. I would be surprised if they lock him in long term.
Phil Yates from ESPN yesterday wrote a thing about predicting all NFL teams starting quarterbacks for 2023, and he predicted the Saints to be with Baker Mayfield for the season.
Yeah, so because I read that too.
Congrats.
Thanks.
I don't know. Like, to me, I think Baker's in a unique spot where I would be a little bit more choosy of where I go. And yes, obviously, there are some weapons for the Saints. But, I mean, Chase, who's running the offense?
Oh, their only weapon, really, if you're the Saints, is you have a pretty good defense. Frankly, offensively, they're not very good, in my opinion.
I like Olave. I think Olave's a good receiver.
He's good, yeah. He's been good.
I mean, I don't know what you can get out of Kamara still. I mean, it seems like Michael Thomas is on the way out, but, you would know better than I do. I don't know. I kind of would tell Baker, man, I don't know how much is left in Matthew Stafford's tank. I think I'd kind of hang out with the Rams for a little bit. You had some success. You found a fit. Like, to me, that's as much as, that's as important as pretty much anything, setting yourself up for a good opportunity. And maybe with Baker, like, I personally don't believe Deshaun Watson's that good. And I think Cleveland's going to find out pretty quickly. I mean, the next scapegoat's going to be Stefanski first, but I mean, the best thing that happened to Deshaun Watson last year was missing the first 11 games, so everyone was laughing at Russell Wilson, and he got to fly under the radar. He was really bad. And again, it's entirely possible, hey, coming off that scenario, missing that many reps, like, you weren't going to be good. But, like, this is a big prove-it year to me for Watson because I personally just don't think he's that good.
What do you think about Wilson and Peyton together? Is that going to work? Or is what we saw from Russell Wilson last year what we're going to see moving forward?
I think what we saw last year from Russell Wilson was the absolute worst-case scenario because essentially he was allowed to be his own offensive coordinator, which was, his team and his camp's dream. And then you bring in a guy, why am I blanking on his name? His dad was the head coach that got fired like in 11 weeks. Couldn't call timeout.
I can't think of his name either.
He's now with the Jets.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Nathaniel Hackett.
Nathaniel Hackett. So you bring in Nathaniel Hackett, who is kind of like a vibes guy. Like, everything's cool. Like, and let's all get along. And so that allowed Russell Wilson to have too much power, probably. I think Sean Payton's going to come in. He's already gotten rid of. Did y'all see who Russell Wilson's personal quarterback coach was?
No.
Jake Heaps.
Oh.
I believe all three of us have seen Jake Heaps work when he was at BYU. So Jake Heaps is like his personal quarterback coach, and Sean Payton immediately gets rid of him. And Sean Payton's going to figure out a way to get the most out of him. I think the way that I would look at it is, if Russell Wilson's done, we'll know, because I do feel like, to a certain degree, if Sean Payton can't get anything out of him, he's probably done.
Oh, that's more than fair. We applauded it yesterday. That Pete Carroll response to Russell Wilson saying and trying to get him fired that was A+ immaculate.
Yeah, I said it on the show, though. Isn't it a lot easier to take the high road when you have the high road?
Well, of course. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, in the end, he's in the position of, he's divorced. Like, I was trying to think about it from this perspective, though. From a non-scandal story, has anyone had a public fall from grace like Russell Wilson that doesn't involve scandal? Whether it be steroids, like on field, off field. No scandal. Just his level of play, and then stories coming out about his kind of behavior behind the scenes. Has anyone had? I couldn't think of someone else like that was even in this category.
Well, no, because the whole time he was in Seattle those last couple of years, it was always, hey, he's propping them up, and they're going to be whatever, and they're terrible and whatever. And you look at it and you go, the system was pretty decent.
Yeah,
over
Geno
there.
Smith was
All
fine.
right.
Yeah.
They prop Russ
also,
up.
like if we want to tie it into the beginning part of the conversation, I think one of Russell Wilson's biggest problems is the quote unquote team around him. Like they want to market him as let Russ cook, and he's got this whole like it's more of like a marketing thing than it is like level of play. And he went from kind of like this goofy, kind of corny guy to like all of a sudden he's a robot, and he's like this high functioning robot. It's like, well, the robot's broken. But it seems like a lot of the problems that were created for Russell Wilson were created by those around him. Like you hear the stories of, it went from being able to call Russell whenever you want to now all of a sudden his own teammates are having to get with his marketing team to get a hold of him. He gets the office. He has his own office in Denver. I mean, like it's just, I don't know. Like I feel like it's the people around him that like are trying to make him into something that he's not, and that I think that led to a lot of the friction in Seattle.
You mentioned it last week. How you feeling about your Bama future bet right now?
Well, they are finding a way. I guess you could say it's a lot like when you get to the airport and you didn't get TSA pre-check and you see that line's pretty long and you know that boarding's already started. You got to get through security quickly. You got to get on that pat down nice and quickly so you can get through security and take off. I mean,
when you go through,
how you got to look at it.
When you go through security and they pat you down, what are they looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Bubble gum, water.
There are strict rules on food.
I believe, water bottles, usually open water bottles. That's what they're looking for.
If you bring on like a 8-ounce thing of shampoo as opposed to the
hold on. God forbid you bring on a can of travel shaving cream.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're patting him down for. Just make sure that he's buckled in safely.
Or God forbid it be a shampoo bottle.
Yeah, I just
you're just trying to get ready for takeoff.
I mean, I understood what Nate Oates was saying. I mean, just keep digging. I mean, people are like, he keeps digging the hole deeper and deeper.
Nate said in hindsight it was probably an error. I mean,
well, because you don't want to bring an open bottle of water through security.
He did. Like, let's give him credit. He did say, "My bad. That's on me." At the end.
If a bunch of jobs were open, would this hurt Nate Oates in trying to get the Kentucky or Kansas job or something along those lines?
Well,
next step.
I mean, if y'all really want to go full tinfoil hat.
Yeah, what do you got? Hit me.
Doesn't that extension look a little more interesting now when he signed it?
When was it?
That extension was basically. It was basically, I think it was like right after the event occurred, but before it like got public.
So you're defending your program, so you go, hey, I'm just taking one for the team, and you're going to pay me for it?
Or, hey, his contract was extended on February 3rd, and I believe the incident was middle of January, correct?
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, again, you could make the argument, hey, deals get done. It takes longer than that for a deal to get done. You could make that argument, and I would have to say I don't know enough. So sure, I can buy that. But at the same time, starting to look a little, maybe all of a sudden Nate Oates was motivated to get a deal done.
I mean, there was more than just Miller at that scene, and Miller's attorney's account. Can't say that it's wrong. I wasn't there. I don't know. But
he's doing his job.
Yeah, but boy.
I mean, his job is to make his client look as good as possible.
Yeah. And it makes him not sympathetic, but it makes
him an idiot.
An idiot, but yeah.
Yeah.
But there are other people that insist that there's more texts that are coming out, and when the texts come out, it's not the best look in the world.
But I mean, then doesn't that become a law enforcement issue? Because it's like, okay, well, if you have these texts, why didn't you have those texts?
Yes.
Yeah. The question that I have, the only question I have with Miller is, did you know that you were bringing a gun to an altercation?
Well, and I know Jeffrey's got to go, but that was one really interesting thing with Clay Travis was on with Ryan Brown, and he pointed out that in no part of Miller's statement his attorney's statement did he say that Miller didn't know about the gun. And if you're writing the persuasive thing, that would definitely be in there if you can add that to an attorney's statement.
You didn't know about the altercation, you mean?
Well,
no, he did not read the text. Like, he did not say that Miller never saw the text.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing would be, I don't know. I mean, to me, the bigger question is if we find out now that there are more texts, I think it now brings into question. Like I listened to the police testimony, like the clips that they put out, and I found them to be credible. And I was left with the opinion, if they could have charged him with something, they would have. I did not feel like it was cover-up. But now if we find out that there are more texts and they weren't able to get those, well, then doesn't cover-up now start to come into play? And, I mean,
well, you at least have a question on why. Yeah.
I am capable of getting new information and changing my opinion.
Yeah. 20 seconds. Tennessee, Sweet 16 or no? Buy, sell?
Sell.
Okay.
Yeah. Losing.
That's it. Ziegler.
Losing Ziegler just kills them. It's that was sad to watch. I mean, he knew he was on the floor.
Hey, I said the same thing on our show yesterday. Like it was because I was watching that game. That was painful to watch.
It was. He's coming off the floor and he's just fighting back tears. And you know how much somebody works to get to that spot. And that team was going to be interesting in the tournament because they're so good defensively when they're healthy. And that sucked. I hate nothing more. I hate nothing more in all of sports. There's two things that I hate the most: injuries and fans who celebrate injuries. I hate those two things more than anything in all of sport.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, it's not like, it's not like he is heading off to the NBA. Like that's the type of college basketball player that makes college basketball fun.
Yeah.
Undersized guard that's really good and is a college basketball player.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys.
Jeffrey Wright joining us there on the My Perfect Franchise hotline. A lot of stuff. Basketball, speaking of, before I turn the page, last night, 3 games. The one we mentioned, 90-85, Alabama over Auburn in Coleman Coliseum last night. The Tigers led by as many as 17 prior to losing there in overtime, getting outscored 15-10. Pretty active overtime period between those two teams. Vanderbilt goes into Rupp and wins 68-66, just kicking themselves for the week before in LSU.
Yep.
That loss that has changed their complete dynamic where now it doesn't matter, but they win 68-66. They spoil 21-20 from Sheboygan last night, including some big plays down the stretch to kind of get Kentucky back in it. Frankly, Vanderbilt was threatening to kind of run them out of the gym a little bit there late. And then speaking of LSU, they lose at home last night. Missouri does get the road win, 81-76 over the LSU Tigers in Baton Rouge.
LSU led in that for a while. I saw the score.
They led 47-34 at the break. They were up 13 at the break.
Carson and I was doing other things. I was kind of working, but we were flipping, and we had Thunder Lakers on, and we kind of got stuck on that for a while.
Stayed there for a minute.
Stayed there for a long minute.
So, a couple baseball things out of yesterday. I'll start with the one that actually has importance moving forward. Hunter Elliott, Mike said he got back into town on Tuesday night, said that they have gotten consistent reports regarding his elbow that it is non-surgical. So they've talked to lots of different doctors. He's had physical examinations in person at this point. He's traveled around. He's kind of been all over the country, frankly. And it is non-surgical. They have diagnosed him with a strained UCL. that is requiring 3 weeks of total shutdown. He's already done 2. That means 1 more week of total shutdown as far as Elliott not picking up a baseball. At that point, it is a very slow ramp up. People have had questions about this, but there's a throwing program that everybody's aware of how sensitive an area this is. If you have any sort of setback, you're done. So they're going to be very, very careful. Mike is also exaggerating because he doesn't want to calls where media is asking him every day. And if you're 1 week late on the guest, then it's late and there's a problem. So, I mean, he's admitted to me that he does this. He typically will go a week or 2 longer than he hopes, simply to sort of avoid that kind of thing. But it's going to be a very slow ramp up. We're talking mid-April, probably early to mid-April, getting Elliott back if everything goes well from this point. That's not any setbacks that could occur. Ole Miss plays Mississippi State April 14th through 16th in Starkville. That is the 6th SEC weekend of the year. So you're talking about 2 more non-conference weekends, then 5-ish conference weekends, somewhere in there. But look, you thought he was out for the year. Potentially, it's huge news if he gets back, if he's 100%, if mentally he's okay. Because as somebody who went through something similar and nowhere near the level, your mind is part of the problem here. You have to trust that your elbow is okay. You've got to throw it. You see the same thing with ACLs, guys who don't quite fire that knee, or they're a little worried about some twists or turns or movements that you would make from that standpoint. So it's great news for the kid. I mean, forget team, for the kid.
Of course.
But for Ole Miss as well. But it's going to be a minute. So, look, it keeps Ole Miss's postseason aspirations there, though. I mean, if Hunter Elliott's healthy, they're a team that's very, very good come postseason. And it keeps those things in play, whereas, frankly, otherwise, they don't have enough right now. They, at least at the moment, with these freshmen not transitioning to the point of being completely ready, they're struggling in the bullpen. There's no doubt about that. So they'll start clicking the calendar off, clicking the weeks off, and see what happens when it turns to April. But another month without Elliott for sure. We'll see kind of how they get through it. Again, they're in Minneapolis this week. They're going to go with the same rotation of Doherty, Saunier, and Rivas Friday, Saturday, Sunday there against Maryland, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Just win some games, keep your head above water, and see where you're at when Elliott, if or when, gets back at that point.
Yeah, my primary thing is I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family, I think. I don't know whether this is because of the stage of life I'm in right now with a son who's playing sports and he's super into it, and it means everything to him, and I see the amount of work that goes into for him at the high school level, right, to get ready to play. And the Zakai Ziegler thing impacted me emotionally the other night. It did. Watching him on the ground, on the court, he knew he had blown his knee out, kind of banging on the court in frustration. And then you see the tears and you see the teammates. And that was hard for me. I just imagined like that being my kid, right? How devastating that would be to work so hard for something. I saw it yesterday. I was watching the Ole Miss game. The lightning delay came, so I flipped to a different game. Was watching the end of Arkansas and Illinois State, I think.
No idea.
And looked like Brady Tigert blew his elbow out again.
Yeah,
and
he threw 34 pitches, and on the last couple, he was basically kind of flailing, waving his elbow between pitches.
So
I've not seen an update there.
It appeared that he was saying that he couldn't feel anything, and he was in tears as he left the field. And you just see that. You see that happen to people. And when I saw your report about Elliott, my primary thing was not about Ole Miss or about what it meant for a competition standpoint. And I know that's what fans want to hear about, but honestly, what I thought about was just how relieved I kind of was for him. I don't know him. I don't know if I've ever met him, but I was happy for him that he doesn't have the people at Tupelo. I know a lot of people at Tupelo who know him and they rave about him. I was happy for him that he doesn't have to go, at least it doesn't appear that he's going to have to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, as JM says in the stream, and he would have some idea here, it's a process. I mean, there's no guarantee he's back that day. But what it does mean is he saw a lot of people. If surgery was the best course of action for Hunter Elliott, he would be having surgery right now.
Sure.
A, because he would be. And two, from a timeline standpoint, that would have allowed him to throw more prior to the draft next season.
Right.
You don't want to postpone it if you're Hunter Elliott, and it's at all necessary because you want to get back, show a healthy arm prior to that draft next summer. So everything points toward this being just the correct decision all the way around.
Sure.
That they do believe he can be 100%.
They did it the right way.
Yeah.
They felt something. shut him down, got multiple opinions.
Yeah.
And you get a consensus.
Then you let somebody look at it in person.
Yeah. And then you kind of go from there. And so you shut it down for 3 weeks and pick up a ball and you follow the plan carefully and meticulously.
See where you are.
And you hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any kind of a setback, you stop and reassess. It's that simple. It's not about.
Yeah, no news is good news now for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's not about getting back for a certain series no, it's about him feeling good about the arm and getting to a place where he feels comfortable and where the doctors and everyone feels comfortable that, hey, you're at no more risk today than you were at any other time that you picked up a baseball and threw it in a way that our arms weren't designed to throw.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great news for him. But yeah, the people that are going to be, what about this weekend? We need him back for this weekend. No, you need him back when he's good.
Yeah.
You need him back when he's physically ready and when he's mentally ready to pitch. And whenever that is, great. If that's Mississippi State, if that's LSU, if that's whoever, great. But no, we must get him back for the 5th weekend. No, you don't. You got to get him back when he's good to go. And not until. And it sounds like that's the plan they have. And I think they should everybody associated with it should probably be commended for the way that they've handled it.
No, it feels textbook as far as
just nice and easy. It's cool.
And no rush to we're just going to, when it gets done, it gets done.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure.
So you say, hey, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks, whatever.
It's what Mike said that first day. He goes, he's not pitching next week, so who cares how many places he needs to go in the meantime? Okay, fine.
And the last thing Mike wants is to put him out there before he's ready and something goes terribly wrong. It's the last thing he wants. So you do it the right way, and they have. And calm, and it's potentially good news.
Yeah. It's good news either way.
Yeah,
but
it's potentially really good news that you might get him back healthy and somewhat rested and all of those things. But like you said, I mean, there's a ramp up that's going to take some time, and
you cannot irritate that UCL.
And if it gets irritated ramping up, then that means that nope, there's a problem, and you got to reassess where you are. So we'll see. Hope for the best, and hope that he's back pitching when he feels good and when he's mentally ready to do it.
The SEC went 4-1 last night in midweek baseball. They only lost. The Jacksonville Dolphins went into Gainesville and beat Florida 10-8. They've actually scuffled a little in the midweek so far. Whatever. Arkansas winning that game 10-9 in 11 innings over Illinois State, over the Cardinals or the Redbirds.
Redbirds.
That's right, the Redbirds of Illinois State. Tennessee over Charleston Southern, Auburn over Florida A&M, and then Ole Miss 4-3 in a really weird game last night. Okay, there's a lot of misinformation on this, and I don't really I understand why La Tech is frustrated. I completely get why Lane Burroughs was annoyed last night. A game that they needed far more than Ole Miss needed it. A road midweek sweep of Ole Miss would really be nice on their resume for the push, because they do not play in a league where they have the same RPI opportunities moving forward. For seeding, host. I mean, they hosted a couple years ago. It's not like it's impossible in Ruston. So I get his frustration. The arguments just didn't make sense. So what happened last night is Ole Miss hit Ethan Groff hit a home run in the 5th inning to go up 4-3. Nobody scored in the 6th, and at the end of 6 innings, Ole Miss led 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
And the top of the 7th, Louisiana Tech got after Ole Miss's bullpen. They scored 2 runs. I think they had runners on the corners. I know they had a run at third base with 2 outs. They had gone up 5-4. And at that point, lightning was detected within 8 miles of Swayze Field. They have monitors that do that. That's not just somebody going, hey, that looks like it's 8 miles away. They know exactly how far it was. Umpire pulls them off the field at that point. Every time there is a lightning strike inside 8 miles, we know this from the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
It's
another 30 minutes.
It's 30 more minutes. The clock just resets. Well, that's problematic when a storm surge is coming into town. Ole Miss had moved the game from 4 to 3. We can debate that in a minute. But anyway, they had moved it from 4 o'clock to 3 o'clock at that point. And here is the part where I don't understand what La Tech is saying, is that they keep griping about the tarp. But at no point prior to the monsoon coming around 8 o'clock last night, and this happened at 5, the first delay was at 5:34.
That's correct.
5:34 p.m.
So before anybody does the Arkansas thing to me, I was watching the Ole Miss game is what I had on. And then when it went to the delay, I said, well, they're not going to play for at least 30 minutes.
Right.
I'm going to flip to something else because no offense to any of the broadcast crews. I'll leave it at that.
Just no offense.
I just said I'm going to go to something that has action,
Yes.
where people are actually throwing
balls and things.
Throwing and hitting balls as opposed to waiting out a 30-minute clock. So that's the reason I flipped over to the Arkansas game.
So 5:34 is the first delay, and there's more lightning and more lightning and more lightning and more lightning and more lightning. They finally announce a restart time of 7:45, a little over 2 hours later. And at the time that happened, the only tarps on the field were on the mound and the plate, the little small ones that they use. Okay, two things here. One, it wasn't wet. It had rained, and it was kind of raining whatever, but here's the truth. It actually kind of makes the field more playable when it just rains a little bit because it settles the dirt and whatever. There were no puddles. Even the warning track had no puddles on it. They drain really well, whatever. So
there's a reason they put water on the field before the game starts.
So there was no reason to tarp the field, A. And then B, and here's where the big brain stuff is coming in that I don't understand, because Lane Burroughs knows this. He was just pissed off.
Yes.
Is that if you tarp the field, it's at least 20 more minutes more than it would be the way they had it to get the field ready. Because once you tarp the field
off, and you got to put lines,
then you have to start doing lines and stuff because the tarp is messing up the field.
Yes.
They did not have a window for doing that. Frankly, Ole Miss or the umpires or whoever makes that decision, I think it's the umpires actually. I don't think Ole Miss has any say of anything to do with the field once the game begins.
Game starts, the game's in the hands
It's
of
not
the
like
umpires.
Mike goes, "Hey, get the tarp out." The umpire goes, "Hey, grab the tarp." So
once the first pitch is thrown, the
it's
game
not
belongs.
Mike's game anymore.
The game belongs to the umpires.
So point being, they actually were doing Tech a favor because had that tarp ever come out, they were never finishing the game. That was it, because the window simply did not allow for that type of situation to play. The other thing, too, is this was just going to keep happening. I mean, they had to get through another half inning. So they only needed like 20 minutes. I mean, it was actually pretty feasible to get another inning in or half inning in or 4 outs, I guess, technically, if lightning would just calm for a second prior to the big storm coming in. And then once 7:45 came, another lightning strike came, which knocked it out 30 more minutes. And then at some point between 7:45 and 8, the sky fell out where an arc was needed.
Yes, it really rained.
So tarp or no tarp at that point.
You weren't playing then.
It did it till 4 a.m. this morning.
Correct.
It's actually maybe still doing it now. It was raining when I drove over.
The rain was supposed to get out around 9 a.m.
So the tarp could have not existed at Swayze Field at all, and it still would have zero impact on that game last night from a finishing or not finishing standpoint. I just don't get why that was the hill that they had decided to die on, because even their official account tweets this 3-paragraph thing going, Ole Miss refused to put the tarp out. It's like, it was lightning. I don't really understand the argument here at this point.
So as someone who is pretty familiar with Louisiana Tech.
Okay. You are.
I get where Burroughs is frustrated.
I get the frustration.
He's a coach. He wanted to win the game. He probably felt like they were about to win the game. That had they played 9 innings, they were going to win the game. I'm sure that's what he felt. I'm not saying it would have happened.
Oh, sure. I mean, Ole Miss was pretty bad in the bullpen.
That's what he felt. He felt like, hey, we're about to get them. And then you wait and you wait and you wait, and you don't get them, and Mother Nature and the way rules work, and you go back since you couldn't finish the inning, and the inning doesn't count, blah, blah, blah.
That's every level of baseball, by the way.
Administratively, that place has always been full of idiots.
Oh, really?
Yes. They have this inflated view of themselves that they can't get over. I grew up around it. I grew up kind of cheering for Louisiana Tech. I mean, would go to their games. That's where I lived. It was easy. I wasn't an LSU fan. I cheered for Tech. I grew up an Alabama fan, actually. So both of my parents have degrees from there.
Yeah.
This is the same administration that when presented the opportunity to get into the Sun Belt, they went, nah, we're good. And so instead of having natural rivals with teams like Louisiana Lafayette, UAB, not UAB, but South Alabama and Southern Miss, and games that would have been appealing to people in Ruston, they've got rivalries with like
Marshall.
Yeah, and Rice and shit. I mean, it's just where they are. And so that's what they do. And they're frustrated. So they should be for the official account to go do all that was stupid. I get Lane being frustrated. Any coach in America in that spot would have been frustrated. So fine. I'm not doing the Lane Burroughs bashing.
And it was also like 5 minutes after the game ended. Like even 20 minutes later, hell, Okay.
He probably woke up today and went, I shouldn't have said some of that, but whatever. I harbor no thing towards him, but just it was stupid on their part. It wasn't like Ole Miss was trying to duck the game. If you want to question sanity, what you do question is the radar was there all day. And instead of starting at 3, if you'd started at 2, you'd have probably gotten done.
And I don't look. It's a very valid thing. I don't know the answer there. There's 2 parts of that conversation. One, that's the quicker part. So let me get this out of the way. La Tech was griping because Mike did not say they could just come back and play 3 innings next week. Shut up. Nobody's coming back. Nobody's coming to bring every worker in and set up the stadium for 2 innings of baseball.
Nope,
Shut up.
Not going to happen.
No one would do that.
Nobody.
Ever.
Not in early March.
Like, what are we doing?
They don't even do that in league play.
No, it's over.
I mean, come on.
So
Major League Baseball has rainouts. They don't bring the Mets all the way back to San Diego to play 2 innings.
A statement from the La Tech Athletics Department. That's literally what it says at the top.
All right.
After retaking the lead 5-4 and still threatening in the top of the 7th inning, the game went into a weather delay due to lightning in the area. Nearly 2 hours later, the Bulldogs and Rebels were set to resume play at 7:45. It was not long after that when the contest was put back into a weather delay and ultimately called off. Due to NCAA rules, the score reverts to the last completed inning, which was the 6th, when Ole Miss was leading 4-3. At no point during the 2+ hour delay were there any plans to tarp the field if heavy rain became an issue. We approached Ole Miss offering to return to Oxford to finish the game at a future date, possibly as early as next week. However, the Rebels head coach said his administration would not allow him to resume the game, according to Bulldog head coach Lane Burroughs. While we were in total agreement of the decision to delay play due to the weather, we are disappointed that our student athletes will not have a chance to determine the outcome on the field.
Oh, good God. Everybody knows the deal in a baseball game when there's weather. It's not the first baseball game that's been impacted by weather. That's so stupid. So Ole Miss is supposed to on Wednesday say, hey, y'all, we're going to turn everything on.
Get everybody back in.
Security, umpires, everything. We're going to pay all that. We're going to get everything going again so that we can resume this game in the 7th inning. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Nobody does that.
They could have played the game earlier in the day. No doubt. There is a little bit of home team gets to do that. It is what it is.
Sure.
It's whatever. Also, I will say this, and I don't know the answer, and this is not defending Ole Miss because, frankly, I think you probably could have played it earlier in the day. I don't know what that looks like logistically. Workers, right. Concession workers, umpire. Well, they're probably already in town the day before, but I mean, everything. I mean, there probably is some stuff to that, hey, just by the way, 3 hours earlier, go. I mean, there's a lot of people involved in this. It's not just,
sure,
let's go play an inter-squad on the field with just the players and the coaches and make sure they're all out there. I mean, there is a little bit of.
And it's not like in a major league setting where, let's say, it's the Braves and the Mets, right? And they get a game in April that gets halted in the 6th. Hey, you guys are coming back in a month.
We'll just start a little
We'll
earlier.
start it then. We'll start it at 5. And even then, they don't do that much. But, the Mets make a couple of trips to Atlanta each year. Teams that, like a game gets rained out at Wrigley, and that team's going back to Chicago to play the White Sox in a month. Maybe they, on their open date, they finish the game at Wrigley. But even then, that doesn't happen much.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's just, hey, we got 6 in. That's a game.
Yay.
You understand that you got to get 5 innings in to get a game. If the game had ended in the top of the 4th inning, it would have just been a no game. It didn't happen. The stats didn't happen.
No, the 7th inning never happened.
It never happened. So those 2 runs didn't happen.
To the point that I've had a hard time going back and finding what was going on because it's all been erased from everything. It's not on the box score or anything.
Again, I completely understand why Lane Burroughs is frustrated, 1,000%. He was about to get a really nice RPI win.
Potentially.
I totally get it. In his mind, he was about to get one. And he very well may have been.
Sure.
So I totally get it. I put no fault on a frustrated coach.
The athletics department, though, shut up.
They need to chill.
Quit.
This happens.
Because here's the deal. There is a pecking order in college baseball, in college sports, in athletics, in life, whatever you want to call it. I mean, in some ways, La Tech is enough of a pain in the ass. Almost will go, forget it. I'm not dealing with you anymore. I'll go play somebody else. I mean,
but they don't see
La Tech's already done that with LSU. LSU's already like, God almighty.
They don't see themselves that way.
But it's happening.
I get it.
I'm reading through their Twitter. They're going, hey, Arkansas still plays us. Everybody else is scared. LSU won't play us anymore. It's like, no, LSU won't play you because you're a bunch of dumbasses.
Yeah, LSU can play a lot of people. They were doing you a favor by playing you.
Yeah, it's not changing LSU's day to go play Tulane instead.
No, it's actually easier.
Yeah, they don't care.
The SEC teams are smart enough to know that the only 30 games that really matter are the ones against each other. Fans don't like it when I say that, except for the fact that it's effing true. Go 19-11 in the league, okay? Go 19-11 in the league, and your ass is hosting. I don't care what you did in the non-league. If Vanderbilt goes 21-9, okay, and loses 3 times to Lipscomb and Belmont, they're still hosting. Flip side, if they beat the ever-living out of Lipscomb and Belmont and go 14-16 in the league, they're not getting a regional. So you tell me that there's not weight on games in the schedule. That's where I'll tell when, like, there was a guy that got mad about us not talking about baseball at the very beginning of the podcast in the week. He's like, well, you're talking about the Cubs. Well, the difference is every one of the 162 games on a Major League Baseball schedule matter equally. Now, some feel bigger than others.
Sure.
But statistically, they're all the damn same. It's not like that in college baseball. It's not like that in college baseball. If Ole Miss goes 20-10 in the league, the losses to Louisiana Tech and whoever else they might end up losing to in the non-league won't matter. If they go 11-19 in the league, they could have beaten the ever-living shit out of Tech, and it won't matter. Way it is.
Yeah. So, anyway, as wrote, baseball guy's pretty good to Ole Miss. They get good news on Elliott. They win a game, and they don't even have to throw 2.1 bullpen innings that they don't have the guys for right now. So
they had a good day.
Sort of worked out for Mike all right yesterday. He went to bed and went, you know what? Other than probably Lane Burroughs yelling at the umpires after the game whenever they met to have that conversation, he went, okay, fine.
Mike probably got where Lane was coming from.
What? Mike's probably listening to him and goes, I'm just going to blame this on Keith right here. Hey, my administration said I just can't do that. My hands are tied. I don't know.
He probably couldn't have just gone, hey,
then he walks off and goes, that was a stupid idea.
Yeah, y'all come back on Wednesday.
No. Ole Miss plays Southern Miss next Tuesday night, so that's the next midweek game for the Rebels. Again,
is that in town?
Yeah, it's in town. And then they play in Oxford or Hattiesburg every year, and then play in Pearl every year. So
gotcha.
They alternate and then go to Pearl for whatever. Southern did their Mississippi State Pearl game this week on Tuesday night.
Oh, so it was like high scoring, right? 11-10 or something
like
that?
Know. I didn't even see a final.
I'm not sure who won, but I think it was an 11-10 game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, Ole Miss, game times this weekend, 3 o'clock tomorrow against Maryland, 7 o'clock against Minnesota on Saturday night, and then 1:30 against Nebraska on Sunday afternoon. So that are your start times for the Cambria College Classic or whatever they're calling that. Again, that is the 3 Big Ten teams, Minnesota, Nebraska, Maryland, and then Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Hawaii on the other side of the bracket. Missouri pulled out of the event, so the Warriors are the third team.
Yeah,
in
good
there.
for them.
Yeah, sure, it's fine. They're hanging out. I'm assuming Missouri didn't want to play 2 of those because they already had played somewhere. They were in Arlington the first week of the year, so I'm assuming that's why they got out of that. So anyway, thanks to Jeffrey for his time today. We'll be back with you. We'll have a pre-recorded show here tonight for Hand Raised Guys. A couple different topics on that one, so we'll have that for you to close out the week on the Oxford Exxon Podcast. And Hand Raised Guys as well. So we'll have that, and then we'll be back with you on Monday morning with a normal schedule. At least Monday. Hey, we'll get to you. We'll let you know.
Monday and probably Tuesday, and then that probably will be it next week because of
from a streaming standpoint.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there. Have a good day. Take care. Talk to you then.